Juggernaut, increase your max health, always nice, especially if you're using max health as a resource to spend abilities. Max health is also going to increase the size of your shields, like Ignis Shield, Bonus Shield, will scale off max health. Green, like just your healing skills like Green Dragon's Blood, heal based on how much health you're missing, so the more health you have, the more potential they have to be better skills, and obviously the longer it takes to kill you. Increase magic and stamina you get back from heavy attacks, which is very nice. Doing heavy attacks is going to be one of the main ways that you sustain your stamina or magic if you get low and you don't have a potion or a ultimate ready. So getting an extra 25% is very nice. And then Rapid Mending, just increase healing received by 8%. So more heals. That includes healing done by others as well as healing you do to yourself. Legendman, you can get Locksmith if you want. This only helps with the White Gold Tower, the first boss fight once you get past the guy outside. If you get locked in the cage, you can pop the lock. Soul Magic, you don't really need anything here. This will save you a soul gem once per hour if you want to spend the skill points. Vampire, now Vampire is not necessary, but the thing about Vampire is as long as you control the level that you're at, it's never a downside. So right now I'm stage 4, health regen 75% slower, 25% more damage from fire. Vampirism abilities are cheaper. Now as long as you carry some Bloody Mara, you can lower your stage at any point, mid-dungeon if you need to. This is all about knowing the content you're going into and how much fire damage there is. So you see now I'm stage 3, health regen 50%, 20% extra fire damage. Vampire is only 14% reduced, the skills. Go down to stage 2, 25%, 15% more fire damage, 7% cost reduction. And then stage 1 is basically as if you were human. So no downsides, no health regen negative, no fire damage negative. Now the health regen really doesn't matter. Like I say, before I was on like 300, now I'm at 370. So by going all the way to stage 4 vampirism, I've only lost 35 healing per second, which is nothing. The only big downside is the fire damage. So if there's no fire damage in the dungeon or the content you're doing, there's no reason not to be stage 3 or 4. If there's a lot of fire damage, you can go as low as you feel you need to be to clear the content. So as far as the passives go, these are going to activate based on your level of vampirism. So Savage Feeding, when you feed, you set the target off balance and stunned. You can't feed during combat, so this is useless in dungeons. Supernatural Recovery, increase magic and stamina regen by 10%. Now, if you're running a regen build, this is going to be a lot of magic and stamina recovery. Even if you're not running a high regen build, 10% recovery is always nice. This is only active if you're stage 2 or higher. So if you're stage 1, this is not active. You don't get this. Blood Ritual, that's just to pass on the vampirism to a friend. If you've got the spare skill points, go for it, but it's not going to help you fight, it's not going to help you tank. On death, you take reduced damage up to 33% based on missing health, where you're below 50% health. So the way that works is, you hit 50%, you take 1% reduced damage. You drop down to 1% health, you're taking 33% reduced damage. And then obviously, if you're at 25%, you take in 16.5% less damage. So basically, the lower you get on health, the less damage you take. It's very nice, but this is only active if you're stage 3 or higher. Unnatural Resistance is just gonna reduce the health recovery negative. So it basically works as if you were one stage lower. So stage 2 has no loss, stage 3 is 25%, which is the original stage 2, stage 4 is 50%, which is the original stage 3. Like I say, health recovery, not a big issue, so if you want to save the skill point in this one, you can. And then Darkstalker is just so it makes it so you can stealth and go at regular walking speed, and you'll also stealth quicker, but this is only active if you're stage 4. Now if you want to quickly rank up your stages, you just need to use vampire skills, and it takes off I think half an hour per skill use that you use. So if you want to rank up quickly to get back to stage 2 or 3 or 4, you can just stand there and spam one of these abilities. As far as Darkstalker goes, in March of Sacrifices, I finally remembered the name, you can do the hunts and you can do the Indrik fight against Tarsier easier if you have this passive. Other than that, not really going to help you in combat. So if you're trying to like maximize your efficiency, you can stay at stage 3 if you want the recovery and the reduced damage. If there's going to be like a moderate amount of fire damage in the dungeon, you drop to stage 2. If there's a lot of fire damage, drop to stage 1, and there's no downsides to being a vampire. As far as the abilities go, you got Drain Essence, it does some damage and heals you for 70% of your missing health every second for 3 seconds, and also stuns the enemy for 3 seconds. And then Morphs, first one's going to give you ultimate. This one is going to drain faster, so it's 0.7, so you get 4 ticks of healing instead of 3. I believe it goes up to 20% when it's max rank, so you look at 80% of your health healed over those 3 seconds. But the ability that really shines is this one, the Invigorating Drain. Gives you ultimate back every second, so 5 ultimate every second for 3 seconds is just insane. So if I put on my skills and just so I have 0 ultimate right now. So you taunt, you hurt slash, you shield, and if you're using this skill, you just look how quickly the ultimate goes up. Now if I had synergies, obviously this would be even quicker. So I'm already at 200 ultimate. I don't have balance on right now to get magic back, but you get the idea. I've already got a Warhorn ready to go. I guess we'll see how long that fight lasted. It's gonna be... okay, it lasted 3 seconds longer than the actual ultimate, so I've got an extra 30 ultimate already. So 38 seconds. If you take off those 3 or 4 seconds where those dots were ticking, I managed to generate 250 ultimate in just over 30 seconds. Warhorn lasts for 30 seconds, so if I had synergies as well, I could keep up not the full effect of Warhorn, but the extra power from it. 10% for 30 seconds. You could keep it up almost on your own, just using the skill. If you think about minor heroism is 2 ultimate every 3 seconds. Major heroism, I believe, is 6 ultimate every 3 seconds, and it's very difficult to get. So 2 of those combined is only 8 ultimate and 3 seconds. This gives 15. So you're basically doubling your ultimate regen, and if you don't have access to major heroism, which pretty much only wardens can get, you could be tripling or quadrupling your ultimate regen by running this skill. It's going to heal you as well, which is nice. Now the only downside is that it is a channel, So for those 3 seconds, you can't block, or if you do block, you'll cancel it. Which is, you know, if a heavy attack's coming in and you block and cancel it, that's fine. But you do waste some of your magic, and if you forget to cancel it, you're just gonna get knocked over on your butt. So you can combine this with the shield discipline to auto block, or you can just time it between heavy attacks. Since it does heal you, you're not losing out too much by not blocking, but you have to be careful of you know, not getting caught out while you're channeling this skill. Next skill is Mistform. Reduce damage taken by 75% for 4 seconds, which is insane. It's also going to remove all disabling and immobilizing effects. So you can't be snared, you can't be immobilized, which sounds amazing, but the downside is that you can't regenerate magic, and you also cannot be healed while you're using the skill. Now the morphs, this one's going to do some damage. This one is going to give you Major Expedition. So Elusive Mist is the one I prefer to go with. Now what this is going to do is it's going to basically let you run around really quick. You take minimal damage, 75% reduced damage. But again, you can't block. If you block, it cancels. You can't regenerate magic, so if you look, my magic is just, it stays stationary while I'm in that form. And I also can't be healed. Now this is a very powerful skill. Obviously 75% damage reduction is amazing. But if you're going to run it, you either need to be careful with your own healing, or your healer needs to be on the same page as you. Because if you drop a low on health and you're using this skill and they start spamming Breath of Life, you're not getting any of it. You're not going to get any heals, they're going to blow through their magic, you're going to come out and then you're going to be struggling. Now, they can apply heal over times to you and onto the ground where you stood, so when you come out, you'll get all that heal over time at once. But you need to make sure that you and your healer are on the same page when you're using the skill. Because if they're spamming burst heals and you're not getting them, they're wasting magic and wasting their time basically, and you're still going to struggle when you come out because those burst heals are going to be wasted. So it's a really powerful skill. Also the snare removal is going to make it so you can just run through the catacombs, like Cradle of Shadows, last boss. If you're running away from the dogs in March of Sacrifices, if you're running away from the Scarab in Fanglair, really useful. You can't sprint and use this, so it's not going to be as good as, say, like if you use the chain. You know, you get Major Expedition and you can sprint, so you can get around a little bit quicker. But it's going to be really good combined with one of the skills coming up, since it lasts for 4 seconds. And I'll mention that when we get to it, but basically it's Equilibrium here in the Mage's Guild. But moving on from that, Dark Brotherhood, nothing you really need in here. This is just going to give you alchemy ingredients every day. Shadow Rider will, if you're going for speedruns and you want to be skipping certain ad pools, and you can do it on your horse, this is going to get you less likely to be detected, but that's very niche. Most dungeons won't let you mount up, but there are certain dungeons like Bloodroot Forge, you can just run through the first area. If you have Shadow Rider, the ads won't attack you, but the only way this works is if every person in the group has Shadow Rider, because there's no use you running through with Shadow Rider and then the guy behind you gets caught by all the ads and then they'll come and chase you anyway. So if you have a coordinated group and everyone is running Shadow Rider and you're going for a speedrun on a very specific dungeon, it can be useful, but most of the time not going to be useful. Fighters Guild, as far as passives, we're going to take Intimidating Presence because it's going to reduce the cost of abilities by 15%. Then Banish the Wicked, when you kill an undead, Daedra or werewolf, you get 9 ultimate. I believe this doesn't have a cooldown, so if you run into a pack of zombies and you happen to like chain them all down, get a couple of killing blows, you can easily get 20, 30, 40 ultimate. Generally the DPS will get the finishing blows, but especially against weaker enemies, you can get a surprising number of killing blows. As far as abilities go, you can use this as an AoE stun, technically. Smiting Dawnbreaker, but I don't personally use it. Silver Bolts morphed into Silver Leash is going to be a stamina version of your chain, but like I said earlier, it's a much worse version. It's not going to refund you the cost. It's not going to give you movement speed. It's not going to do fire damage, so it's not going to activate your passives. It's going to do physical damage. So it's an option if you're not a DK. It's there. If you are a DK, I personally don't use it. If you feel like you're plowing through too much magic and you need to chain a bunch of stuff, you could run both of them. It's up to you, but you're using up 2 slots, and I find it just drains your stamina very quickly. But it's there, it's an option if you want it. Circle of Protection, it's going to put a rune on the ground. It's going to give you and anyone else standing in it minor protection, minor endurance, so 8% damage reduction, increased stamina recovery by 10%. Then when you morph it, this one's going to fear enemies, but only... I believe they changed it actually. It used to only be undead, but I think it fears any enemies now, which is okay, but your talons will lock down enemies around you anyway. So this one is usually the preferred morph, Ring of Preservation. It's going to heal people, you and anyone else stood in it, but it only lasts 8 seconds. So you're going to have to cast this more often. It's going to heal 331 every 0.5 seconds, so 660 a second. And then obviously if you have your increased healing done, increased healing received passives and buffs going, major mending, all that good stuff is going to go up a lot. That's pretty much it for that skill. Expert Hunter you don't really need. It's Major Savagery is ready for stamina DPS. Trap Beast again is for stamina DPS. You don't really need this skill. If you want Slayer, you can. If you plan to run Ring of Preservation, it's going to give you I believe 3% if you put 3 points in there, 3% extra weapon damage. It will make your stamina abilities hit very slightly more. But since this is the only skill you're really going to be using, this passive is going to be wasted most of the time. Skill tracker, you're not using any abilities that do damage. And then this is just for quests in Cyrodiil, so you don't need these unless you plan to PvP and run some quests in Cyrodiil. Major skills, the only ability we're going to use is Equilibrium. So passives wise, reduce the health cost of the ability by 15%, it's very nice. It costs 5,100 health, so that reduction is very nice. And then Magic Controller, increase max magic and magic recovery, well you have that slotted. This is just for questing. This one, there is no duration on this skill. It's you just get the resources straight away, so you don't need that passive. The Empower, if you've got spare skill points, you can get it. It's going to give you 40% extra damage on your next light attack. So nothing that's going to help you tank, but it's a bit of extra damage if you want it. If you want to run Meteor, you can. It's going to be the same sort of deal as the Destruction Staff Ultimate. It's not really going to help you tank. It's not really going to offer much group benefit. It's just there if your group is so low DPS that you can actually out DPS them from the tank position by running skills like this. I mean, it does come with a 2-second stun, which is nice, and Shooting Star refunds ultimate based on number of enemies hit, so you could run a really high ultimate generation build and just be throwing shooting stars like back to back. But again, this is only if you need to make up for your DPS. Now you do have to get rank 10 Mage's Guild if you want this skill, so if you want to put in the time to do that, go for it. It's an option, but if you're with good players, you're never going to need this skill really. Major Light is for spell crit, gives you a bit of extra max magic if you morph it. Personally, I find that bar space is very important on a tank. You want to only be running the skills you need, so having just a passive skill, for me, it's not worth it. You can get this if you want to. It will make your magic abilities, magic heals, crit slightly more often, and they'll be slightly stronger because you'll have more max magic. So it's an option if you want it, but personally I don't ever run this. Entropy is going to give you magic, it's going to give you sorcery, it's more of a DPS skill. Fire Rune, same thing, put it on the ground, it's going to do damage. I believe when you morph it, it can also give you force, but that's a DPS thing, you don't really need this skill. Now Equilibrium, you're going to sacrifice your health and you're going to get back magic using this skill. The downside is that for the next 4 seconds your shields and your healing is half strength. And when we morph it, both of these morphs are really powerful. So spell symmetry, it's going to give you the magic and that's going to make your next magic ability cheaper by 30%. So this is really great if you need to just chain a bunch of stuff. So spell symmetry, chain a thing. Spell symmetry, chain. Spell symmetry, chain. Or you can do like, 2 chains, spell symmetry, 2 chains, spell symmetry. Personally, I like to run the other morph. It's going to give Major Resolve, Major Ward. If you like to use the Hardened Armor or Immovable, or if you like running Mighty Chudan, you already have a source of Major Resolve, Major Ward, you don't need this morph, you can go with the spell symmetry. Personally, I like this morph better because it saves me a bar slot, so I don't have to run one skill to get the Resolve and Ward, one skill to get magic. But that's just a personal preference. So when we look at this, let me put on a healing skill. Let me put on Cinderstorm. So if I just spam this a bunch of times, you'll see if you use this a lot and get a bit trigger happy with it, you can seriously put yourself in trouble. Now you can't kill yourself with it. It won't let you commit suicide using the skill, but you can drop so low that you basically are dead. So if I use the skill, drop down a heal, you see it's healing me for 551, and then after 4 seconds, now it's healing me for 1100. So, half heals. Same with shields. So if I shield, you'll see it gives me... Let me heal up first. See, the shield is going basically to the end of the first ability. If I use this skill and then a shield, it's going, half that distance. So shield size is halved, healing is halved. Now you can combine this with the mist form that I was shown earlier with the vampire. Since you can't be healed for 4 seconds anyway, you might as well use this in conjunction with it. And then when you come out, you can use this, get back your magic, since you can't regenerate magic. Go back to mist form, you can't be healed, you can't regenerate magic anyway. So those two skills act very nicely with each other. See, this is going to make so you can't heal for 4 seconds, but massive damage reduction. The other ability can't heal for 4 seconds, but you get magic back. So this costs magic, the other one gives you magic. But at some point, between using these two skills, you're going to have to heal. Because this is going to take your health, and this is going to stop you from healing. So at some point, you're going to have to pop out, and then do a burst heal on yourself. Now the good thing is, if you're reducing your healing for 4 seconds and you use it mist form, you'll know that as soon as mist form ends, your healing is back to full, so you can give yourself that burst heal that you need. Like I say, it gives you the snare removal. Oh, wrong skill, sorry. Balance. Gives you the armor. The armor lasts for 25 seconds, so you can use this before going into a fight. So you can use this, you can use Dragon's Blood, so you get your extra healing, you've got your extra armor before the fight even starts, and you can run in and do your thing. And for the first 20 seconds of the fight, you've got both your buffs running, which is nice to have. Let's see. Now I guess you could do this to increase the duration of this Major Resolve, Major Ward, but 25 seconds is a long time for a skill that you can basically use infinitely. One thing I should mention is the half healing only applies to healing you do. So if somebody else is healing you, it's still full strength. So if you have a good healer, you can basically spam this and go instantly back up to full, which means you have infinite magic, which is where the real strength of the skill comes. So if you're on your own, you need to be careful. You need to be using it, getting your magic back, holding off for that 4 seconds, and then burst healing yourself. If you're with someone else who's healing you, you can just spam this all day, have infinite magic, and do whatever you need to do. Psijic Order, the ultimate, Temporal Guard, is going to passively give you minor protection. So it's a nice extra bonus. You can get minor protection from the mages, from the Fighters Guild's Rune of Protection, or from Ransec. But the big skill that I really like is Precognition. So what this lets you do, like the base skill, reverses time for you by 4 seconds. It's going to give you the magic and stamina that you had 4 seconds ago, and also health. So if you use this incorrectly, you can actually drain your health. So let's say you're running around, you drain all your resources, and then you drink a potion. So say I drink a magic potion, get magic back, and then I use the skill. Oh, I lost it again because I've gone back before I drank the potion. So you need to be careful when you're using the skill. You can actually drain your own resources if you're using it in conjunction with a potion. It's also not going to give you your battle roll passive, because it's going to give you the resources and then it's going to set you back to when you didn't have the resources. So that's the downside of using the skill. The plus side is that you can use this ability while crowd controlled. So what that means is certain mechanics you can avoid. So if you don't trust your teammates to save you from a mechanic, or if you don't want to deal with a mechanic, you can use this skill to bypass it. Now it only works on certain mechanics, like anything that's designed to be a one-shot, it usually doesn't work on. But other things like Scalecaller Peak, Doilemesh Gargoyle Fight, you get turned to stone, an ally is meant to free you, but you can free yourself with this skill. Zaan the Scalecaller, if you get shackled, somebody else is meant to block the fire to protect you. This will break you out of it. Or like Banished Cells 2, the spider boss that puts you in a cocoon. Allies meant to come and free you. You can free yourself with this skill. So it's got a lot of special mechanics where you can free yourself when you're meant to have a teammate free you. But this is one you have to play around with, because it doesn't work on every mechanic that you have to be free from. So for example, Fungal Grotto 2, when the lady chains you to the ground, this skill's not going to work. The fight against Malbeth the Scourger, if she starts draining your health, this skill doesn't work. So you have to play around with this skill a little bit. I've been thinking about making a video about which things you can and can't avoid with this. But if you do decide to use it, certain fights it's gonna just save your life. Certain fights it's gonna be useless. So you can play around with this if you want. It's really useful in certain circumstances if you don't reliably have teammates that will bash for you or will do mechanics for you to save your life. But like I say, you need to know where it will work and where it won't work. Next skill, Time Stop. It's going to slow enemies and then stun them. The morph you're gonna want to take is Time Freeze. It's gonna take away the cast time. The other morph is another form of snare removal, but it only lasts for 2 seconds. So it's going to work basically the same as your wings for snare removal, similar time frame. It will give you Major Expedition, or it'll work the same as the Mist Form. Mist Form lasts twice as long, but it has the negatives of no health and no magic restore while it's happening. So it's an option if you want it, but this morph Time Freeze, you're gonna drop it on the ground. It's gonna slow enemies down, and then it's gonna stun them. So it's basically a 7-second disable. This is for fights where you can't just run in for mechanical reasons, and you want to keep enemies stopped or away from the group. So for example, Moonhunter Keep, last boss, you need to keep the boss away from the damage, but you need to also be protecting your group from the werewolves. So you can throw Time Freeze into the middle of the room, the werewolves will run in to get your group members, and they'll get slowed and they'll get frozen. Same thing with the new Lair of Marsalok. You need to stop the Stranglers from killing the spiders, but they're immune to Taunt, so you can't do the DPS, so you can throw Time Freeze on them, so it stops them from attacking the spiders, lets you DPS clear them up. Like I say, this is a very specific mechanic-based skill, like to deal with specific mechanics. So this is not a skill you're going to be running a lot. It's very expensive, 6,000 magic. So you only want to be using this for specific mechanics where it's needed. Impure Weapon, this is a DPS skill, and both morphs. Oh, sorry, I got the other morph of this wrong. The other morph is just a PvP thing. The skill I was thinking about is Accelerate. This Accelerate is the one that gives you the 2-second snare immunity and movement speed. And that's the only useful morph with this skill. Like I say, it will give you movement speed for 4 seconds, and then the one morph will give you the snare removal, but in my opinion we have better forms of snare removal already with other skills we've already talked about, so I don't use the skill. If you're another class, or if you don't like being a vampire, you can use, I think it's called Race Against Time is the morph, which will give you the snare removal and the movement speed for fights like, you know, Velidreth Catacombs, Moonhunter Keep, not Moonhunter, sorry, March Sacrifices with the dogs, Fanglair with the scarab. Next skill, Mend Wounds. This turns your light attacks into heals and heavy attacks into heals. So you target your allies and light and heavy attack them to give them health. This can be a decent skill. If you don't like running a staff, this is an option. Your heavy attacks will give you the magic back. So if you heavy attack your allies, you'll heal them and you will get magic return. Not much magic, but it's a form of magic return if you really just don't like using staff. But you do have to be very careful. You need to, if you need to heavy attack the boss to get stamina back, you need to make sure you turn this off. Also, if you're not running an ability that activates your enchantments, you will have to turn this off to light attack the boss. Now, your Puncture and your Heroic Slash will activate your Sword and Shield enchantment, Your other bar, if you're not running Elemental Drain, Elemental Blockade, you'll have to keep switching this on and off to activate your second enchantment. And you'll have to switch it off to Heavy Attack. So it's a skill, you can use it, it's a good skill, but you need to be very careful. You need to know when to switch it on and off. Next skill, it's going to, it's probably best to put it on just to show you, it's going to make you stop in place. You can't move, you can't do any skills until you block to break out of it. It's going to give you back health, magic and stamina every second that you're channeling. And then the morphs, this one will give you extra healing, this one is extra resources. I always prefer the extra resources, so you can kind of run around, blow through all your resources, then go into your meditate, and you'll see they come back up. Now, one thing about this skill, it is a channel, so you cannot block. If you want to get around that, you can pair it with the Sword and Shield Ultimate, Shield Discipline, so you can auto block and meditate, which is very powerful. You can kind of drop in and out of this as you want to, or as you can. So you can meditate, drop out, block a heavy attack, retaunt, re-heroic slash, and put your shield up back into meditate, drop back out. Do some skills, go back in, drop back out. So it has no cost associated with it, so you can kind of drop in and out as you need to. You can double tap to drop in and out if you instead of blocking, if you want to. So it's a very good skill. Just make sure you're not using it for too long, because what I'll see some people do is they'll put all their, they'll put their taunt on, they'll do all their skills, and they'll go into meditate, and then they'll stay there. And then they'll stay there, and they'll stay there, and then suddenly the boss will start running away because taunts run out, and then they'll run away and they'll start chasing after the boss trying to get it back. So just make sure if you're using this skill, you don't really want to be staying in there for more than, I would say, 5 or 6 seconds. Because every 6 seconds you want to be using your shield to get ultimate and to give major brutality, minor brutality. The brutality will last 9 seconds, but the ultimate you want to be doing every 6 seconds. And then your taunt and your heroic slash you want to be doing every 12 seconds or so. So it's a great skill, just make sure you don't overuse it. And make sure you drop out of it if you need to be blocking a heavy attack or something. As far as passives, this one comes for free when you get the Psijic line. Reduced cost, always nice. Time stop, even with the reduced cost, is still 6,300. So yeah, if you ever want to use that skill, just make sure you have this. Spell Orb, you cannot use with these skills we're using, because you have to use 5 in quick succession. You're not going to be able to afford to do this 5 times in a row, and this doesn't count. It has to be something that costs. So this is more for DPS. Concentrated Barrier is going to give you a shield. That's the shield you saw when I was blocking. So this yellow shield. It's just a freebie. Whenever you block with a Psijic skill on your bar, you get the shield. When it breaks and you stop blocking, it will slowly regenerate back up to full over 10 seconds? Yeah, 10 seconds. So if you want to use the shield a lot, you have to drop block to refill it. So if you just hold block and it breaks and you just keep holding block, it won't come back. Last passive, when you are casting or channeling, you get major protection, so reduce damage by 30%. So this is going to be active if you're meditating. So this works really well if you're pairing up with the Sword and Shield Ultimate. So you can use your Shield Discipline, you can meditate, so you're auto blocking, you've got major protection, and you're refilling your health, magic and stamina. So even if you take a heavy attack, your auto block is going to stop you getting knocked over. because while you're channeling this, anything that will knock you over will cancel the channel and it will knock you over, or knock you back, or stagger you, or whatever the skill does. Thieves Guild, nothing you really need here. Undaunted, all these skills are pretty good. Blood Altar, it's gonna cost you health to do it. It's gonna put a debuff on all enemies in the area, so anytime anyone hits them, they'll get 690 health. And it comes with the synergy, starts off at 40%. Increased duration, reduced cost, not really important. You've got a lot of health to spare, and 30-second duration is a lot as it is. So what we generally go with is the Overflown Altar. It's going to give 65% of the max health. So you drop it on the ground, and then whenever you hit an enemy, you'll heal. Whenever your allies hit the enemy, they'll heal. And then if they drop low, they'll get offered a synergy, which will heal them for 65% of their health. Now, generally, it's better if a healer runs this, because 65% of your health is going to be a lot. 65% of their health, not that much. And you can't activate your own synergy. So, if a healer is running this, you don't want to run it. But it is an option if your group is suffering and you're not, like if you're fine and the rest of the group is suffering for heals, it's a good option to have. It's also going to heal you when you do damage. So if you've got your elemental blockade down, every time this ticks, you'll heal for 690. Next ability, Trapping Webs. You don't technically need this. This is a DPS skill. What you can do is you can throw it out, and then if a stamina DPS synergizes it, they're going to get a pretty powerful spider coming out. So that's an option, but it's not going to help you tank in any way. Inner Fire is a ranged taunt, lasts for 15 seconds, same as your other taunt. And it's going to give a synergy. Now Morph, you can choose either. My preferred decision is, because your other taunt costs stamina, this taunt costs magic. That way, whichever if you're lacking one resource, you can always get the taunt off with the other one. The stamina one is just going to make it so enemies take 2% more damage from your attacks, which is not important as a tank. This one is going to always apply the synergy. So, see, it does magic damage up front and then magic damage over time. This is actually very powerful because it scales with the person who synergizes it. So, DPS uses this, is going to do a lot of damage. Next skill, Bone Shield, gives you a shield, lasts for 6 seconds, scales up your max health, so the more health you've got, the bigger the shield is. Also gives a synergy, so all your nearby allies will get a damage shield for 30% of their max health. And the Morphs, Spiked will do extra damage, reflected damage, but Bone Surge is the one you want to go for. Basically makes the synergy also give you and the allies, it'll give them the damage shield for 30%, and it will also increase healing received by 30%. So this will stack with your major mending, which is healing done. It will stack with your other forms of healing received. So Bone Surge goes off, everyone takes a bunch more healing, which is nice. Necrotic Orb, this is your only form of giving resources back to the group. It's up to you which morph you take. This is going to do damage. Again, damage will scale with the synergizer's stats. This one heals. Personally, I prefer the healing. Again, the heal will scale with their stats, I believe. The burst heal, anyway. This is actually a decent heal. It's going to heal for 520 every half second, so that's 1040 every second. So that's just as strong as a Vigor heal or a Cinderstorm heal, but it just float away from you. So if you want constant heals from this, you'll have to kind of follow the orb, which is not ideal as a tank. You don't really want to be moving stuff. but if you're just really struggling for health, or if you have to go do a mechanic, like, you know, you're over here fighting this guy, and then there's a mechanic over there, you can kind of throw the orb as you go, and it will heal you as you do whatever you need to do over here. And also, you know, your allies can synergize it to get their resources back and get a burst heal. Passives for Undaunted: activating a synergy gives you 4% of your max health, magic, and stamina. It's just free resources, so you definitely want that. Works on every synergy from all your allies. And then Metal: increase your health, stamina, and magic by 2% per type of armor, which is why I'm wearing 5 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium. If you're in all heavy, 2% extra resources. If you're doing 6 heavy and 1 of something else, 4%. If you're 5 heavy, 1 light, 1 medium, 6%. So 6% resources across the board, really nice to have. Assault, you got Warhorn. This is going to be the ultimate you're going to really want to run if you're with any sort of decent to good group. So it's going to give max magic, max stamina increased by 10% for 30 seconds. So healing done, damage done, all increased, because all your abilities that cost magic or stamina will scale with your max magic, max stamina. And then also Major Force, increase critical damage by 15% for 10 seconds. So assuming a DPS has 50% crit, you're looking at a 7.5% damage increase across the board. If they have higher crit, you get higher damage. The closer they are to 100% crit, the closer you are to 15% flat damage increase across the board. So huge damage spike for the first 10 seconds, and then damage increase for the next 20 seconds before it falls off. If you're with a really low DPS group, don't even bother with this. Just run some sort of damage ultimate or defensive ultimate if they're really struggling. But any group, if the DPS is hitting, let's say 15-20,000 or more, this skill's probably worth running. If they're, you know, 30, 40, 50, 60, all the way up to, you know, 100, 110, this ability is just insane. It's going to increase the damage by so much. Rapid Maneuver, a very expensive skill. See, 6,700 stamina. Lasts for 8 seconds, give you Major Expedition. Also Major Gallop for your horse. So just makes it easier to get around. Your Morphs, 15% less damage from behind, or also against Minor Expedition. Charging is usually the one I go for. So Minor plus Major, you're looking at 40% movement speed for 8 seconds. So this usually is not going to be used in combat. Your horse will still move at 30% speed for 30 seconds, whichever morph you take. So if you just want it for running around the world, you don't need to spend the skill point to morph it. If your group is just really bad at getting to mechanics, like getting to the shield and scale caller, or, you know, they just are too slow that they just cannot reach where they need to be in time, you can run this skill. Like I say, very, very expensive, so you don't want to be spamming this out. Most organized groups, if your group members know what they're doing, they're not going to need this skill to get to where they need to be, but is an option if they are struggling. Vigor is going to be your stamina heal. 2 options. Echoing Vigor is going to heal you and heal all your allies. Resolving Vigor is going to heal you. It's going to be a 4-second kind of bursty heal rather than a, you know, I think this ranks up to maybe 12 seconds. This is more of a heal over time. This is burst heal, but only for you. So this is a kind of selfish heal. This is a group friendly heal. Personally, I go with the Echoing. It lasts 10 seconds at full rank. If you are really struggling for heals, you can run the other morph. But there are other skills you can use, other burst heals. And this is the only stamina heal that's any good. So if you want two kind of bursty heals with the Dragon's Blood and Vigor, you can run the other morph. But if your allies are in trouble, you're not going to be able to do anything to save them. So it's up to you. You can run either. One is more group focused, one is more selfish. And then this is DPS, this is DPS. These are all for PvP. So if you're just in dungeons, you don't need any of that. Support, barrier is an option. If you want to, it's going to scale with your max magic or max stamina, whichever is higher. So you see this shield shields for almost 16,000. So Magma Shell is going to heal for, it's going to shield for their max health. So generally, you know, a very squishy DPS is going to get about the same shield. People with more health are going to get a higher shield. Also, Magma Shell is going to make you basically immune for 12 seconds. So personally, I prefer Magma Shell. This is an option if you want to use it. Generally, this is better on a healer or even a DPS. The morphs of this, one gives you a refund of magic and ultimate when the shields expire. The other one gives a heal when the shield is active. But because, at least on my build, my stamina and magic pools are fairly low, so this shield is fairly small. So for me, it's not worth running. Other builds, it definitely can be very powerful. It can be worth running. But you will need your PvP rank up to 6, like the support line up to a 6, to unlock this. Personally, I don't like PvP, so I just got the minimum that I could get away with. But this is a option if you want to use it. It is a good skill. I just personally don't use it. Siege Shield is just for PvP. Purge, this is going to remove negative effects. So you can use this as a snare removal instead of your other skills, but it's going to cost twice as much. It costs 7,700 almost. This more efficient purge is going to reduce the cost, which is very needed. Cleanse is going to heal people. This is more of a healer thing. Reduce cost, definitely going to need that. So it's going to take off 3 negative effects. Certain fights, there are dots that just ramp up to a point where they just do so much damage you can't deal with them. So you can use this to get rid of dots on yourself or on your teammates. It works for everyone. You can use it for, like, if you're running, let's say, Moonhunter Keep and you're versus the Lurcher that puts roots on people, and your teammates just cannot dodge roll. They just will not do it. They'll just stand there on the roots and they'll just die. You can run this to basically dodge roll for them so they don't have to do the mechanic. Now, obviously that's not your job, but if they're just not doing what they're supposed to be doing and you can run this to save them, maybe you want to. Next skill is Guard. This is usually not run that much anymore. What it does, you target a person, you use Guard on them, and you have a bond with that person. There's a link between you. You take 30% of the damage that they take. It will break if you get too far away, or if you recast the skill, it will break. Your 2 morphs. Stalwart Guard is going to give minor force, so it's going to help increase their damage. Now, every magic and stamina DPS generally will have access to minor force, and they should be running it. If you are playing with werewolves, if werewolves ever get big again, they've been nerfed like 3 or 4 times the past few patches, but if they ever do get strong again, guarding Stalwart Guard on a werewolf is very strong because they can't get minor force. But usually the one you're going to want to go with is Mystic Guard. It's going to give minor vitality to you and the person you're bonded to, which is 8% healing received. So generally this will be used in trials where you've got the main tank is tanking a boss, taking a bunch of damage. The off tank will guard the main tank. So the main tank basically takes 30% reduced damage because it's redistributed to you. So this skill, you're probably not going to use it too much, but it is nice to have if you've got one person in the group that is under-leveled or inexperienced. You can guard them and keep them safe, but you can only guard one person at a time. So has its uses, not incredible as a skill for most dungeons. Revealing Flare, this is for PvP. Magic Aid, it's going to increase your magic recovery for each support ability that's slotted. So if you're running Guard, if you're running Purge, or if you're running Barrier, you can get extra magic regen. If you rank this skill line up to rank 9, it'll go up to 10%. I don't use these skills enough or like PvP enough to bother with that, but it's a nice boost in regen if you like PvP and you want to go kind of put the effort into doing it. And then these two are purely PvP based passives. All of your racial skills, you're gonna want to get everything. Doesn't really matter what race you are. Every race can tank technically. Nords have extra health, extra resistance to cold, extra stamina. They get ultimate when they take damage, and extra defenses. Argonians are the best for managing resources. They get a bunch of stats back when they drink a potion. Imperials are really good for just having big stat pools. They get extra health, extra stamina. But you can technically tank on any race. You may want to kind of swap out the way you build your character. If you have more max magic, maybe you want to go for a more like shield based playstyle. Max health, you can run the shields that scale off max health, and you can use skills like balance to trade your health for other resources. Or you can run a regen build if you have like a Wood Elf, Red Guards, High Elf, something with regen. You can go for a super high regen build. Completely up to you, but whatever your race is, you're going to want everything. And as far as crafting goes, the only thing you really need is medicinal use. Potions will last 30% longer, so when you drink a potion, usually the effects will last for 47.5 seconds if you have this passive. The cooldown on drinking a potion is 45 seconds, so you have permanent uptime on your buffs. The rest of crafting doesn't matter. So that's it for the skills. This video is super long already, so I'm not going to go over like how to set up your bar or gear and stuff like that. If you want more information about other things like that, just let me know and I'll make a separate video. But yeah, that's it. If you are ever struggling for consumables like your food or Bloody Mara, if you're a vampire, just shout out in guild chat. Me or CK or someone will hook you up with whatever you need. But yeah, it's already gone on too long, so catch you next time.